Hello, I'm really excited. I feel like I'm on a football show today because I'm like, let's do this. And I have to admit that football, I have a love of football. I don't generally love football, but I have to just mention it today. I'm really, really excited today because we have an amazing, inspirational woman of color, a superwoman who has dawned our presence. We've got Abigail Agyei. Have I said that right? Have I done it? Yes. And
Yes.
what I'm really excited
Yeah,
about
you
is
got it.
yeah. So I'm really excited because of her journey, what she's going to share with us. I'm going to get some new insight into all the things that she's been up to. This is a real good treat for you. Before I introduce her, though, let me remind you that the SuperWomenCan podcast has been created for women of color, successful women of color, to show up in their true capes and superhero outfits and show that they can. Because who are we? We're superwomen, and we can pass anything that society says we cannot do. We so can do it, and we're going to do it. And Abigail, she's going to tell us how she has achieved her level of success and continues to shine despite what society has shown up and said. So get ready for episode 11. Abigail, introduce
Oh,
yourself.
thanks so much for having me, Samantha. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to be on the podcast because I think what you're doing is amazing and so important to really like push the narrative and importance of all the amazing things women of color are doing. So a little bit about me. My name is Abigail, as you said. A senior policy advisor, so currently working in health, and I work in early years health. So my focus is on kind of the area of early years workforce, looking at how we can make sure they're diverse and they have the support and training they need to make sure they're all families with their needs and supporting them. I'm also incredibly passionate about intersectional identities. So I'm a diversity and inclusion champion and a neurodiversity advocate. So I have ADHD and dyspraxia myself, and I'm really passionate about the community for all people to learn about neurodiversity and that particular focus on Black women, because Black women are often misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed for an array of reasons. So I'm kind of really passionate about removing the stigma of ADHD and neurodiversity in Black community, and empower people to kind of work with their brains and not against them. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
I love it. Well, I love it because you've got extra superpowers. One, as you probably know, Abigail, I am dyslexic. I've got ADHD and other spectrums. They couldn't even decide between me. My brain just wanted to do everything. It's like have a bit of each pie, go for it. And also being, the intersectionalities of having a neurodiversity. It comes with its own baggage. So I can't wait for you to showcase that we can. It doesn't matter. It's like we definitely can achieve so much greatness. I cannot wait for you to go into more detail. So tell me, first of all, I know you said that you show up and you are champion women of color. You're already an amazing advocate or in this space, but tell me how you got there, why you got there. Tell me more. Tell me everything. Tell me everything. Like spill the beans.
Oh, yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. I always say when kind of people ask, it's like there was never really a particular plan. I guess the common thread through everything I've done, like as I was saying, I'm a civil servant and I've worked in a variety of different areas. And I think that common thread is always just wanting to advocate for marginalized communities. And I think especially, for people who often feel like they're not seen and heard by our government. So I think that's kind of just how, when I left uni, I kind of fell into things. I initially worked as an asylum caseworker. So I was working with immigrants and people who are claiming asylum, making sure their kind of cases were put together to present to the Home Office. And I've also worked with Grenfell victims and survivors, and worked with most recently, before the current role I'm in, ethnic minority communities with COVID. So kind of making sure that we were looking into how they were feeling about how what was kind of happening with COVID and like vaccine hesitancy, and looking at things like that. And also worked with the Windrush working on the Windrush commemoration, kind of looking at supporting the Windrush generation and all their contributions to this country. So I think there's never been like a real kind of, I guess, plan. There's always just been that interest in making sure I'm really getting to advocate for marginalized communities, people who feel underrepresented, and really amplifying their voices. So in terms of, how's that kind of happened? I guess just, working in the civil service, I've always kind of had that experience engaging with communities. I've really kind of got to harness that. I think in terms of, just always branding myself, I think in that way, and being just really advocate and being really passionate about doing that work has kind of helped me navigate my career in that sense. I think that's something that I've always kind of worked to do. I think is really important to do. I think the civil service is starting to improve, but there's definitely a lot that can be done to make sure it is like as diverse and reflective at all grades and levels as the kind of community that we live in, because we serve a diverse community. So we need to make sure that at all levels, not just at junior levels, that is being reflected at the top. So I think that's kind of just, always been me wanting to advocate, wanting to amplify those voices and wanting to speak up from my personal experience as well. And that's kind of helped me navigate like my career and passions.
Amazing. So I know that you've said you started off and you said I've got neurodiversities, but you've championed. One thing you didn't mention is that you are an alumni like myself on the first ever LinkedIn UK Accelerator program. So your brand and your visibility on the platform is second to none. You literally are blowing up on LinkedIn. Got to check her out, by the way. We'll put some down there.
Yes, I'll send it.
Now, what battles have you faced getting to where you've got to and been able to be this advocate that you are, really amazing star that you are?
Thanks. So there's definitely been like battles. I think the imposter syndrome has definitely often been there and still sometimes is trying to fight its way to push through, because like you said, when you do have those intersectional identities as a Black woman, as a woman with neurodiversities, and only discovering my own like neurodiversities really in the last few years, it can definitely kind of be that battle of understanding, of trying to work out where you fit in, what you kind of bring to organizations and places. There's obviously kind of a lot of parts you have to think of, and a lot of these, qualities that I think are amazing and make me part of what I am can often, feel in challenging in places where there's people that have not looked like you. So there's definitely been those kind of battles to be, I feel like, seen, to be heard, to navigate. Definitely feeling like, I think Black women and women of color often experience feeling like you have to kind of work twice as hard for your work to really be credited and seen and valued. So that's definitely been kind of a lot of the challenges, and really having to look within and remind myself of what I bring to like kind of organization and places I've been in. I think that's often been that challenge, sometimes feeling a bit lost and feeling frustrated. So I think, that's definitely been some of those challenges, really trying to navigate where I fit into places and how I can like make it my own, and like my lived experiences and talents into different places.
So when did you mention that you were diagnosed only a few years ago? So was there any kind of like signs? Because I know for myself, it was a really late diagnosis. I had questions when I was a kid saying things like, Samantha is so, you can tell she's very articulate and great at what she does, but she seems to always easily be distracted, or it would be like the same, like literally even when I went into the workplace, I used to get a red pen going, Samantha is clearly talented, but she's very easily distracted, or she's not very articulate in the written word, but very articulate in the spoken word. No one got it for years. It was really clear on paper that there was something there that needed to look into. What's your story? How did how did it all come about?
And this is why it's something I'm like really passionate about, especially. And I did a TEDx last year in terms of kind of making sure we're really paying attention to like, and I'll send the links all that as well. To like
all the big stuff.
And I forgot to put that in my intro as well. But that's why I'm like really passionate when it comes to this, especially with, I think, Black women, because I think often, there's an array of reasons why it feels like things can get missed. And I think a lot of the time, like some of the things you picked out, I think a lot of these things are kind of often seen as like more personality traits or characteristic flaws, as opposed to there needing to be more to look to support people. So I feel like, when I definitely look back, I say a line in my TEDx where, what did I say exactly? Kind of, I feel like there was a lifetime of kind of meaning well, but like always kind of missing, like not having my full potential. And I think that's what it was. It was that I would work hard, and I feel like I was often really trying really hard to push myself and things. But I would always feel like sometimes I was just missing the post, like just being pipped to the post by things. So I feel like definitely losing things. I think I could be scatty in that way. I could literally spend hours trying to kind of take in information and just still not necessarily do as well as in exams. I think there was definitely elements of kind of overcompensating and trying to overcompensate in some places because of the struggles I had in other ways. Being a hoarder, so definitely being like, that's still something I'm trying to get better at. But I think, yeah, there was like loads of these signs that I think Gabby gets learns in terms of in my reports about, yeah, kind of really good at some areas. I think a lot of the kind of creative things in terms of, if I was really, I think that, and it goes back to kind of that dopamine fix, if I was really, I guess, passionate about something, I think I would really shine. So I think being young, when I was younger in history in school, I could do well if it was stuff like learning about civil rights, because I kind of really could find that passion. Or there was parts in English language I would do well because I found the poetry really interesting. So it's like really being able to harness and doing really well in some of that stuff. And then other stuff, which was kind of science, which my brain wouldn't do well, and just not really doing well. There being such that disparity. And I think often, yeah, there is not a real kind of looking at how kind of girls may kind of operate differently, and how there is still, like, I think, gender bias with a lot of how, which is getting better, how neurodiversity is looked at. And because a lot of the research was done on kind of white cisgendered young boys, it's not kind of sometimes looked at how symptoms kind of manifest differently in girls. So yeah, I think I do look back and think, God, yeah, there was just so many things. And I think for a lot of people, when you do officially get that diagnosis, you do kind of feel like validated and liberated. But then there is that kind of anger, isn't there, of, well, why did things take so long? Like, why didn't kind of someone see me in that way?
Oh my days, you just literally like just said a mirror. You were like, you mirror me in so many different ways. Like, you were just talking about losing stuff. I was like, oh my days, that is just so me. Like, my keys, my house keys, you couldn't give me a single key, like an actual single key, because trust me, that will go missing. I actually have a bunch of keys, like they're so heavy because there's no way, and they've got like a big bright little like key rings on it, because there's just no way that I can't lose them. Like, I'll hear them if they're around, I'll see them if they're around. There's no, even my kids,
1 minute and then another minute, yeah, it's just
yeah,
gone.
even I have an iron. I kept forgetting to turn it off. It was like the bane of my husband's existence with me. He was like, turn the iron off, woman. And I was just like, you go so dangerous. And I was like, I can't remember to turn it off. Like, it's just not, there's no switch to tell me to turn it off. It's like, there must be like a neurodiverse iron to buy. And I found one, which is amazing. There's an iron you can buy, by the way.
Oh, good. You might have to
Yeah.
pass
Yeah.
to me.
And it's like,
I try to avoid iron as much as possible. I hate
it had
ironing,
like
but...
yeah, I don't like ironing either. But there was like, it was like a sensory one, so it had like bright blue lights. It ought to tell you it was on. But also, if you left it for a couple of minutes, it starts going beep, beep, beep. So I could be
I love
downstairs.
that. Yeah, I need that
Oh
for
my God, that was
everything.
amazing. That changed my life. It changed my husband's life. It saved my marriage. So I understand that. And then, creative, like you said, I did so well in art. I did so well in all those things. I just couldn't do maths and all the other stuff. And then you mentioned something else, which was like hoarding. And yeah, again, my husband was like, you're a hoarder. And I'm like, I'm not a hoarder. And I did I had a Kamari consultant come to my house. And what the Kamari method is, you have to take everything into your living room and pile it all up. And I tell you, I've got a really big living room. It's 20 by 24. It's huge. And my clothes, you can only bring your own clothes, just your clothes, not your kids, not your husband's, just your clothes. And you can put a little section, so there can be a bag section, a shoe section, clothes section, and what else was it? I think it was just different sections. But I kid you not, the pile reached the ceiling.
Oh my God.
And I was
I
in
can
there
imagine.
since I was like 8, maybe 9 years, things that fit me. Like, maybe I had baggy clothes, but they were so many years old. And I was like, I finally admitted that I was hoarding. And so that was my break.
And you try to justify in the moment, isn't it? Why I might need it. It's like this fear of letting, I'm not sure what it is, but it's like, you haven't worn it for years. But it's like, but I think, might bring it back now. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely need to go through that.
You should definitely do it. You should do it, definitely. So tell me then, what strategies did you put in place? Because to me, I've had to learn a lot of self-coping strategies, and I'm sure you've learned them as well. What were there? Because there might be people like feeling like wow, this rings a bell to me. Is there anything I can do now while I go and wait for a diagnosis? What can I do? What strategies did you put in place?
Variety of things. I think I definitely utilize things like kind of my calendar, my to do list. I have to write like everything down, but then I'm really trying to separate that kind of what I need to do and what like, so kind of writing it all down. I think brain dumps are so important because there's always so much going on in our like neurodiverse heads. So I like to kind of put everything on the like page and then kind of really assess and look at like what I need to do, like what is those top priorities, and like try and like put those down as much as possible, because I think sometimes, yeah, we're trying to do too much, and like really assess the day and what can be done and what's most important and what kind of benefit that day. So I try and do that. Timers, I try and utilize that much as much as possible, because I think sometimes, you know, concept of time, we can get, especially if we're really passionate about something, I can hyper focus and just get lost in things. So try and do that. Utilize my calendar, put everything as on calendars, because if it's not on that calendar, I'm going to forget to do it. Boards always good for me as well. I've got a big whiteboard as well, kind of in my living room, that I kind of jot things down on to see. So yeah, I think things like that, those kind of like have been really helpful for me. I think I try and move around sometimes in terms of change of spaces as well, I think, to help that kind of boredom and procrastination as well. So yeah, those some of like initial things that come to mind that like help me.
Oh, I resonate with everything you said there. They're really great strategies and really great tips. So if there's going to be there's going to be people that are actually listening and going, oh my days, like literally, this is me. This is me. How did you go and find a diagnosis? What did you do? Because that's one of the questions I get asked a lot. What did you
Yeah.
do to get a
And
diagnosis?
it is such a maze, and one of the things that I just feel like needs to kind of be
Mhm.
improved in terms of the system. Because for me, so I guess just to kind of, I guess, give the backdrop of my current understanding of how the UK diagnosis is, I think there's kind of, I'd always say the first point of contact is go to your GP, but make sure you're armed, because I think especially for Black women, I think we have, I think, a lot of kind of problems with the healthcare system and really understanding our needs. And I think we really have to advocate for ourselves, unfortunately. So I would say that write down everything that you think that you kind of experience and why you think it's ADHD. So you're kind of going in prepared, because sometimes you have to deal with a GP kind of dismissing or trying to say other things. Obviously, they're GPs and they have the knowledge, but they're still, it's the psychiatrist who, when I get to explain kind of that diagnosis process, who has like kind of the real expertise in that area. But sometimes, so yeah, I'd say kind of write down everything and how you think it's affected you in your childhood and kind of adulthood. So kind of be prepared to go for that conversation. There's also online tests that kind of, I guess, there's like basic tests you can do. And if you do really feel like that aligns with you, you can explain to your GP as well that you've done that test. So I'd say go to your GP first. And my understanding is with the ADHD system at the moment, that there is always like the first point of contact going to your GP. And then you can go through either the NHS system, which unfortunately there's been long waiting lists. It can range from, speaking to a range of people, it can take about 2 years to some people saying it's taken them even like kind of longer. So that's kind of one process. Then if you suspect or think it's going to take too long, which I did, there is something called right to choose. So it's still through kind of the NHS, but there's a specific health care provider. They're called Psychiatry UK. So they, and I'll make sure to send all these links for you,
Yes, please.
Samantha.
That'd be amazing.
So through them, you can basically make a case. They've got a letter template on their website. I think the waiting list is about 6 months. It's months-ish at the moment. I think mine just took under a year. But you can basically kind of send this letter to your GP, for your GP to send over to them, basically to say that I think kind of the NHS waiting list is going to take a long time. I want to go through this with this specific provider for me to kind of go through the ADHD diagnosis process, and then they can put you through there, and then they can kind of, they'll be the sole provider kind of dealing with everything. So they will do your diagnosis, and then if you get your official diagnosis, they can do further things like looking at medication or what other support and strategies can be put in place. So I'm with them. And the third option would be private, but obviously not everyone has the luxury to do that. And I think it can range by about £400 or so. They're the kind of three processes in the UK, but it can be really hard to navigate. And I'll definitely send the link. ADHD UK, I think, is got kind of a really good page of just navigating those three different ways. So they're the three different ways. And in my case, yeah, I went through that Psychiatry UK, like I said. Before then, because I suspected I had ADHD for a while, around 2017, 2018 time, I read an article and I related to that. Before that, I was very ignorant to the fact that, like, I'm sure many of us, that adults had ADHD, that it was something that wasn't just, you know, associated with boys. And then I read an amazing mental health advocate, Penny Bell. She talked about finding out she had ADHD at 30, and then just, yeah, reading everything she said about kind of her mind feeling on constant overload and feeling physically and mentally worn out and kind of feeling disorganized. I was like, wow, so this is ADHD. So kind of, yeah, I read that and then kind of didn't do anything with it until about 2020. And I think this is what tends to happen, I think, for a lot of women of color, I think ADHD, where things kind of just become so unmanageable. You feel like you need that extra help. So I feel like it was 2020, the height of the pandemic, obviously everything that was happening, kind of the resurgence of Black Lives Matter and stuff. I think, especially with the work I do, and I was doing a lot of work with Black and Asian minority communities over COVID, and then I was leading the race network in my department. I think I just got exhausted, worn out, and I was like, I just need some like help. I don't know what, if I do think this is ADHD, I need to actively see what support I can get past this. So that's what initially made me reach out to my occupational health in my department, and then they worked with this organization called Lexi, who kind of helps with workplace accommodation. So I spoke to I had like an assessment with them, and they said that, yeah, based on speaking to you, this seems synonymous with ADHD, but we can kind of we can kind of help with work stuff, but we can't do anything, like, this is not an official diagnosis. But when I got that, I took that to my GP to say, well, these people are saying that, like, what further help can I get? So then that's when they were like, okay, if you want to kind of go down these options. And then I'd seen somewhere else on social media, I think Instagram, about this right to choose option. I kind of said to my GP, can we go through that option where I go through the Psychiatry UK? And then it took, yeah, initially my GP wasn't dismissive as much, because I guess maybe only because I kind of had provided this and advocated for myself, but he was kind of like, are you sure it's not just kind of general stress? There was a level of feeling like not really wanting to kind of, I guess, initiate that. And then finally I was able to go through that. And then about, yeah, I think 9 months later, after being on the waiting list, I had my appointment with Psychiatry UK. I still do feel like the process, sorry, I'm going on quite a run.
It's fine.
Not,
it's really helpful, isn't it? Really
yeah, I still feel like it's not the most ADHD friendly process. I think you still kind of have to go through, fill in all these application forms. You had to, which I still think they do with most cases, someone close to you can kind of fill in, I think, another form about how, like, the experience is. So I had to answer questions that were kind of about my childhood and adulthood, various things, I think, to see if they aligned with there's like a diagnosis criteria. And I think if you hit certain indicators, it aligns with ADHDs. I think kind of about your disorganization, about your, like how much you can focus, inattentive, all these kind of things. So I answered questions, and then I got my partner to answer the same kind of questions that they give. And it was really interesting to hear his responses, because you're kind of like, oh, wow. So this is how you see that I do things. That, yeah, she'll kind of be doing something and then she'll go off. She'll watch something for a bit and be bored. Just all this stuff where you're like, oh, wow. So you can really, really see these symptoms in me. So, yeah, and then you give so you had to give all those forms to, I think, them. And then, yeah, you have the appointment. Had to remember when the appointment was. I think I got a reminder. Maybe I did. I don't remember. And then, yeah, so you have a kind of a conversation with that psychiatrist for a few hours, and I guess they're going through the criteria. And then at the end, yeah, he said that, yeah, this is like associated, and it seems like you've got the combined, because you can have either hyperactive, inattentive, or a mix of the two. And he said that, yeah, you seem to have combined ADHD. And yeah, like, I felt like validated, but I remember just bursting out crying, because you just feel like, wow, there's like, so it's not just all been in my head, there is something else that, so yeah, that was kind of the,
well, thank you. That is
so you remember the original questions, Samantha, sorry, but I went all around explaining stuff.
No, it's super useful. Someone watching this will know what steps to take. And the fact that the NHS didn't actually tell you that that's the option, you had to find it. So now you've given a little nugget there that someone else may not know about. So my diagnosis was actually through university. So I was in university, I was on my last, it was in university where actually my lecturers, there was more than one, multiple, kept saying, are you dyslexic? Just by the questions I was asking, how I was asking questions, how I just have to keep asking questions before the penny would drop. I literally would just go, I've got any questions, and it would always be me. I have questions, and everyone would go, and I'm like, well, I've got questions. I want to make sure I do well, and I would just be asking multiple questions. But he would like, they'd be like, do you have do you have dyslexia? And I remember finally going, oh, what I'm old now, because obviously you have an association of being a child,
Yeah.
most of it. What am I going to do about it now? And they're like, you can get an assessment done for free in university. And I was actually a week before I was due to finish my dissertation. That's when I
Wow.
went and did the assessment, and I found out a week, just literally a week before that, I definitely had it, like literally ticked. Well, like I said, I weaved in and out of different, and that's what I always want to tell people is that you don't necessarily have to tick every single box. You could be weaving in and
Exactly.
out of different
Well, there's so much of that. There's so much of that intersection, literally, with
relevant.
all of them, isn't there? So a lot of similarities and a lot
Yeah.
of the same things. Because yeah, I found out about my dyspraxia in university actually, very similarly, where one of my tutors had said something, and then I think I went back to my mom and she's like, I do remember something like this coming up when you were younger about because you struggled to like ride a bike and all these other things, but then it kind of just didn't, it wasn't pursued any further. And I was like, oh, okay. So then that's how I had to do a test in university as well. So it is
Yeah,
interesting, isn't
and
it?
it's free in the university, so they'll do it for you.
Yeah.
They'll book you in very, very quickly with psychologists there, and it was so quick. Like, I mean, I think I put it in, and it was like a couple of weeks, and I was seen. So, if you're in university or studying, like I was doing my master's,
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
then there's another route. There are all
Yeah,
different routes.
yeah, I
So
think that's a very valid point to utilize as much as you can if your workplace is willing to and you feel comfortable if that you
yeah,
utilize those things. If university, I think you should be because yeah, these things should be accessible for everyone and it shouldn't.
yeah, it should come under private healthcare when you work nowadays.
Yeah,
It's now become kind of the things that are happening. People should be able to get a diagnosis because the more you know that they have a challenge, the more you can support the
exactly, that you can adapt and support
workplace.
them.
This should really, we might have started something here. Who knows? We may have started something, Abigail. They need we
Yeah, I
advocate
think it's so.
AXA and Lex, all those the big names, all
Yeah,
healthcare providers, to start saying that actually we will do a diagnosis as part of your
yeah.
work, workplace assessment if you
I
feel
always,
that you tick the
I'm,
box.
yeah, I always say that to people, and even people I work with and manage that I'm like, literally, sometimes we don't even have the language. And even if you don't have an official diagnosis, I think it's always important as an employer, as a manager, to kind of find out what you can need support with, how I can support you, how find out how people work, and then kind of look into that if they need to get that official diagnosis, even if there's not that term or terminology or people aren't comfortable with any certain labels, you should be providing like workplaces where people are able to adapt and be
Yeah,
supported
yeah.
with how they work.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We're onto something here. I like it. So for me, you have managed to get to where you've helped so many people. That is what you do. Like literally, as you are on this, you're already helping so many people without even you're just it's just natural to you, isn't it? Now, if you were to give some tips to how to be successful, especially if you've got neurodiversities, what say like 5 tips? Let's just name a number so we can stay on track because I know we need to have a number. So let's say 5 tips. What 5 tips would you
Wow.
personally give?
Tips.
Tips. Let's go for some 5 tips that you'd give to continue to elevate your success as a Black or ethnic minority woman climbing the ladder of success. What would you say?
I think I would say it's important to one kind of keep a track of your wins and things like that. I feel like I'm always passionate about that, especially for Black women and women of color, because I think, like I was saying before, sometimes we have experiences of being undervalued or the work we're doing not being appreciated as much as possible. So really make sure you kind of always evidencing and making a note of everything that you're doing, and you're really kind of thinking about how you communicate, the work and the impact that your work's doing. Because I think there is a tendency for us to minimize as well ourselves, like how much we're doing. So I think that's important. I think get that feedback. I try and get that regular 360, not just from my managers, but from kind of the peers and people I'm working with, the stakeholders, to kind of get that information. And always don't be afraid to kind of constantly assess your strengths and weaknesses as well. So constantly review what you're doing, how you can get better. And two more, I'd say, seize all those opportunities. I think that's something I've done that's helped me navigate in the civil service. If there's any kind of schemes happening, leaderships, I'm always willing to like kind of make that business case and put that business case together to my manager of why I think that will benefit me. I think especially if you're in certain organizations as women of color, where those kind of improvements need to be made to make sure more of us are getting up there, your organization should be wanting to utilize getting you on those things. So don't be afraid. I've been kind of a bold and audacious with those things about if there is a various leadership scheme or something I think is going to help me that the organization can pay for, and you have a certain kind of level and learning and development, like there tends to be a lot of pots in organizations that aren't being utilized. Don't be afraid to kind of make that case for why you think that will benefit not only you but the department or the organization you're working with. I think that's a lot of what they kind of want to know. So seize all those things. And I think it's important for us to get mentors as well. Get mentors. Don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn and get them to understand what you would benefit from learning from them, but what they can benefit as well, because mentoring can often, be a two-way relationship, and mentors can learn a lot from their mentees as well. So there's some of the immediate things that come to mind.
And I think they're amazing. That was amazing 5 tips. And anyone listening today are like, yes, I'm going to go ahead and go and do those 5 things right now. You mentioned, can you tell me some of your biggest successes? Because I know that you've got some real great success stories. Can you share them with us, especially on the LinkedIn platform, and how you did it?
I think I'll start off with the LinkedIn Accelerator program, because I was really, and that being honest and transparent with the imposter syndrome, because I saw the LinkedIn Accelerator program very last minute and decided to apply. At that stage, I'd been like kind of building my brand, but more like within the civil service. And then I just recently done my TEDx at that point and had started kind of talking more about it on LinkedIn. But didn't know if I had kind of the big, I guess, brand or experience as some of other people that I thought would be applying for it. So I thought, you know what, I've kind of got a story to tell. I have been doing this work that I'm really passionate about, so let me just apply for this. So when I found out that I was part of the inaugural program, I was like really like excited. And yes, I think that's definitely been a success, and it's really pushed me out of my comfort zone to proudly kind of speak about neurodiversity, about being a Black woman who's neurodiverse, and supporting other Black women to feel kind of empowered. Because like I was saying earlier, I think sometimes we can feel, once you've kind of got a lot of these intersectional identities, sometimes it can feel like another barrier. But I really want to encourage women to, be able to kind of work with their brains and realize all the benefits and the amazing, like yourself and so many amazing neurodiverse people who are able to really harness their creativity. So I think that's been something. And I have been really proud of generally a lot of the work I've done in the civil service, kind of around race now and around intersectionality, because it's not been easy. It's been challenging. It's there's had to be difficult conversations with a lot of senior leaders, especially around 2020, and it's continuing to happen about what more can be done as like a civil service who are serving the public and community to make sure that we are diverse and past diverse, and there's that equity and there's that actual feeling of inclusion, because the civil service is, I'd say, generally diverse, but is it diverse in all the kind of different levels that it needs to be? I think there's a lot of work to be done there. So having those conversations, I have been proud of that, and also proud that I've been able to, in a lot of my community engagement work, make sure that the views of communities are being reflected back up to government. So I've been proud of a lot. I think there's some of the immediate things that come to mind.
You keep skimming past this TEDx talk. You're like, yeah, TEDx.
Oh my God, my TEDx. No, I am very proud of my TEDx. I need to stop skipping the TEDx.
Like,
I am actually
like,
very
amazing.
Yeah, that was a huge amount of work last year.
Tell me what was the process? Someone that wants to be on TEDx. I want to be on TEDx actually.
Yes.
I want to be on TEDx. I want to go and be on TEDx. You've motivated me to be on TEDx today. I put it on my vision board for this year, funnily enough.
Yeah, and then it's gonna happen, because it was actually on my vision board. Yeah, it was on my vision board
there we go.
I put it on my vision board.
Something interesting.
It would have been the year before, isn't it? Because I found out this time last year that I was going to be on it. So I had it on my vision board. I'd say that yes, it's always something I'd funnily. How did it happen? It's something I'd thought about, and like thought about what exactly my message would be, and it was because the last few years I have kind of done a lot of that research about Black women and why they seem to kind of be the demographic that often kind of getting later diagnosis, or now kind of there's really that change and stuff. So I had always kind of just been doing a lot of that work. I'm part of quite a few community groups and was speaking to other Black women. So it's always something I kind of wanted to explore further and put on a bigger platform. And TEDx had kind of been in the back of my mind, but that imposter syndrome, feeling like, am I the expert to really be advocating or doing this? So I kind of thought about it, and had seen a few kind of places that I could like learn more, get some training and stuff about it. And then it was, I'm trying to remember timelines. It must have been the end of 20, we're now in 20, so 2021. I think I'd seen TEDx, the University of Essex were doing TEDx's, and their theme was, the title was, Are You Paying Attention? So I thought, oh, that kind of, and it was all, I guess, ideas of attention, grabbing things attention. I thought, oh, wow, maybe my kind of message about ADHD and Black women is something that I could feed into that. So yeah, I just decided to kind of apply, had an interview with them, and then found out at the beginning of last year that they wanted me to do the TEDx, and it was in May. So yeah, I had kind of had those few months to actually prepare and put it together, and it was definitely a process. But I would say that if you're interested in doing TEDx, there's so many different TEDx's that happen like around the country. So TED.com, I think, literally does kind of have a list of them, and I'm now subscribed to a few others, because initially I was thinking of a few others. TEDx London Women was one I was initially interested in doing as well and stuff. So I'd say, yeah, you can sign up to kind of them and see kind of when they're doing them. I'd always say give yourself a good amount of time, like to kind of think about like the topic and what you want to do and the message you want to get across, and what I guess your motivation is, because I guess the idea of TEDs is to kind of, yeah, not just kind of motivational speaking, but kind of having a message, getting that across and kind of helping people. So I guess the kind of idea is, yeah, restoring kind of what solutions you kind of have for something. That's kind of how it's framed. So I'd say, yeah, think about that, and yeah, getting on TED.com and kind of looking at that and doing research. TEDx Essex was great, but because it was mostly run by students, they couldn't give as much full-on support as needed. So I think there's a lot of ones who've been doing it for many years, who are actually university students as well. But I think TEDx Essex's one was kind of a bit more relatively new. But I know TEDx London and a few others, I think, can really give you that help to like shape your speech a bit more and do a lot more like practicing and rehearsals. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, some of the advice I can give. But I think, yeah, you've definitely got an amazing story to tell, Samantha, that I'm sure a lot of these TEDx's would want to have you on board and have you as a TEDx speaker for sure.
So anyone in the audience who's listening that wants their own TEDx, wants to get on TEDx and get on that stage and boost their confidence and do it, go for it. We here first, put it on your vision board. I've got my vision board now. And something interesting happened. I put it on the day before. Then the very next day at TEDx, where I'm based in Manchester, TEDx Manchester, posted a picture advertising TEDx Manchester.
Yeah, I've seen they're doing theirs this year, actually.
Guess whose picture was on there?
Who?
It was me. I was like, I'm kidding you not. I was on there. They were advertising for the tickets, and it was when I went there the year before. And I saw on the advertisement, I was like, this is a sign that I'm supposed to be on this platform.
Definitely take a look. I think, yeah, TEDx Manchester. And I'm funny enough, because I think I've got a range of their emails. I did see that they have a range of amazing different speakers this year. So maybe, yeah, I think you should definitely look, apply. Yeah. And you've been before. I think that would be a great one.
And I'm encouraging those who are listening, you get your own opportunity to get on TEDx as well. And I'll meet you there. Really, really.
Exactly. And I have to shout out Elaine Powell, who's an amazing TEDx speaker. She's like a public speaker who does a lot of like TEDx courses and stuff. So I did go kind of on her course to learn a bit more and to get some of those tips about how to present and things like that. So yeah.
So tell us now, what's in store for you? Because there's just so much that you're doing and you skim over it. Like you said, one of the tips that you said, really like skim over it. I'm like, no, these are really big things. You've got TEDx, you've got Windrush, you've got Grenville, you've got, you know, advocating for the intersectionalities of ADHD. You're like booming, and the big stuff. I just want to remind you of that. There are really big stuff that you're getting involved in, and you're making change, and it's just so natural to you. What's in store for you over the next 5 years? Tell us something that's going to blow our minds. What are we going to see? Where are you going to see you? Come on, we know it's going to be.
Thanks so much, Samantha. And yeah, I feel like in that I do often need to, I think that's the ADHD brain sometimes. I'm always go. Sometimes I think I have to do a better job, and that's why I try and like write down some of the wins and really try and take it in a bit more. I've been trying to do that more recently, because I'm definitely guilty of just go, not really acknowledging all the amazing things and making sure I'm really grateful for everything that's happening. But the next 5 years, yeah, I'm just really trying to continue to build this kind of brand of being a neurodiversity advocate, the intersectional identity. So I'm trying to do a lot more public speaking, podcasts like this to kind of really get the message out there. And I really want to, yeah, help Black women, help all marginalized communities, I think, who are neurodivergent, but with that real focus on Black women, because I think sometimes, yeah, they are a demographic that can just feel often unseen. And I think where's, you know, there's obviously benefits of being superwoman, but I think that superwoman syndrome of Black women can sometimes mean that we're nurturing everyone and not really getting to nurture ourselves. So that's something I just want to do to make sure that Black women feel kind of supported. And even though, you know, I always want to be honest and transparent. It can be challenging, like having ADHD, but there is, I think, when you kind of have that support, you really can thrive. So I think, yeah, just wanting there to really kind of break that stigma, wanted to make sure we're having these conversations earlier, so you know, young Black girls are coming up and not having to go through a lot of the kind of struggles I kind of had to go through, kind of navigating and understanding my brain and who I am. So I think that's what I want to do, kind of really continue to work to advocate, to break down stigmas, and to really champion like neurodiversity and Black girls and women feeling empowered.
Amazing. So where can we find you, Abigail? Where's the best? Where can we hunt you down? Because we need to hunt you down now, don't we?
Oh, well, LinkedIn is probably where I've been doing the most stuff. I need to go back to, you know, ADHD, you can be inconsistently consistent. That's what I like to call myself. But I'm definitely going back. I think this month has been a lot of kind of prepping for things. But in February, I'm kind of going back to do my LinkedIn series. So I have an As an ADHD LinkedIn series, which I have to get you now on some if I speak, where I kind of speak to a range of
I'd love to.
different like experts and allies. So it's, yeah, mostly been focused on Black women, but we have had other allies on to kind of speak about a range of topics. I've had spoken about kind of ADHD coaching for Black women. I've spoken about ADHD and money, because that's something that can be challenging, that I'm budgeting I find challenging. Spoken about the diagnosis process on there as well, because it's so confusing. So yeah, like a range of different topics, and I definitely want to continue that. So definitely, yeah, have people on, and I'm trying to do that more regularly. And I have a newsletter as well. I have an Instagram page as well, as an ADHDer, that I'm trying to kind of bring up, where I'm going to be putting more of my bite-sized content from LinkedIn, because obviously LinkedIn can sometimes be a lot of long form. So I want to start putting some of that shorter form content on there. And yeah, that's probably about it. I can also provide my link tree, that's what it's called, isn't it? Which has all my different information. It's got my TEDx talk on there as well. So I can provide, yeah, that's where all my information is.
You are indeed a superwoman. Thank you so much. We are so grateful to be on it. It's been so, you know what's been so good about it? Informative, useful, insightful, inspirational, all of those shares that you've done today. I know that it's going to be impactful. So I'm so grateful that you came on, and I'm really, really excited to keep following you, tracking you down. I found you. Now I know where to go and hunt for you, and continue to do this great work that you're doing. I'm really excited for the next 5 years, 10 years, a plus, for you to continue to celebrate as a superwoman. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Samantha. I've really enjoyed it.